Clair, Obscur, Expedition 33 is very, very French. That's the feedback I got from basically everyone who'd played it a few months ago when I was thinking about investing some of my hard-earned cash for a copy, and now that I've finally completed it, everyone else has moved on and it's time for me to offer my extremely late review. I can confidently tell you that description is both extremely reductive, oversimplistic, slightly patronising, but also 100% true. Expedition 33 is a game quite unlike anything I've ever played before. It's a wild ride of gorgeous, hyper-stylized environments, art design that looks like it came from the mind of a 19th century French impressionist on acid, a challenging but rewarding combat system, a surreal world that operates on outlandish rules that are only vaguely explained, characters who speak in eloquent riddles and never actually answer any of the burning questions the player has, and a story where I had no fucking clue what was even going on until like the final hour of the game. Like I say, Expedition 33 is a bit of a weird one. It's a game that plays very much by its own rules, which it mostly seems to be making up as it goes along, and it offers up a challenging experience for the player on both a gameplay and a storytelling level. And you know what? It's fucking great. This game made more of an impression on me than a dozen AAA slop titles from American studios ever could. It's a title that feels like a genuine piece of art, made by a studio with a clear creative vision they wanted to bring to life. And they did. And I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get around to reviewing it, but what can I say? I'm kind of retarded that way. Anyway, on with the plots. The game takes place on the island of Lumiere, which I could best describe as an alternate fantasy version of late 19th century Paris, which seems to have become isolated from the rest of the world due to an event known as the Fracture. Anyway, Lumiere is watched over by a sinister deity known as the Paintress, and once every year she'll make a giant number appear on an island off in the distance, an event known as the Grammage. Anyone older than that number will just kind of vanish from existence. Just go with it, okay? Naturally, the Grammage is not too popular with the people of Lumiere, especially because the number keeps getting lower with each passing year, so every once in a while they'll send expeditions over to the mainland in a desperate attempt to fight their way to the Paintress and kill the shit out of her. So far, none have ever returned. This is where you step in as Gustave, a young man whose wife vanishes in the latest Grammage and who only has a year left to live himself, so he's like, fuck it, I'm in. Expedition number 33 soon turns into a disaster when the team get ambushed and most of the explorers are killed, leaving Gustave to make contact with the small group of survivors and carry on as best they can. Their mission is to explore the hostile continent, take down the surreal enemies roaming the landscape, fight their way to the Paintress, and somehow, against all the odds, take her out. But as you soon discover, all is not what it seems. Does one of your group know more about this world than they're letting on? Who is the mysterious old man who keeps trying to disrupt your mission? What's the true nature of the Paintress? And what will really happen to the world if you destroy her? And will all of your teammates make it through to the end? Now, I'm not going to get into spoilers for this one because Expedition 33 is definitely a story that has to unfold in its own way and its own time, and as it turns out, both of which are quite unusual. I don't think I've ever gotten so close to what I thought was the end of a game and still had no answers about what was actually happening, who everyone was, and what all of this crazy shit actually meant. But then, the game's got the habit of pulling the rug out from you just when you think you've got it figured out, completely changing your perception of what's happening and how far you still have left to go. And it offers up a few pretty important choices near the end that will radically change the ending you get, so think carefully. And I will say that by the time it was all over, I was pretty impressed by the experience. Like, damn man, these writers really had a mature, thoughtful narrative they wanted to tell with this one. Not to sound all wanky and pretentious here, but what starts out as a visually interesting but fairly straight up story of survival, friendship and adventure eventually gets reframed as a poignant, melancholy reflection on loss, grief, acceptance and the impermanence of the human life. It's great stuff, and it's helped along by a superb cast of characters, well developed with quirky, likeable personalities, and enough depth to keep you invested in them. You feel like you never quite know what anyone might be hiding, what meanings you can discover from offhand comments, and what their real purpose is here. I mean, most of them tend to speak in riddles whenever they're discussing important events, and avoid answering questions better than a British politician, so if you're looking for an easy to follow narrative here, you're probably going to be frustrated. Exploration and world traversal is handled handled in typical RPG fashion. There's a world map that allows you to travel between specific areas, but you can still do most of the things you're able to do in the levels themselves, like get into battles and interact with the environment, so it's a little less jarring than other games of its kind. Once you enter into an environment, exploration is surprisingly simple for such a complex game. There's not much in the way of puzzles or environmental hazards to worry about. You can fall hundreds of feet without taking any damage, and the edges of levels are blocked by the good old invisible wall to stop you tumbling off into oblivion. Don't get me wrong, they're interesting enough to explore on a visual level, they look gorgeous, there's an insane amount of creativity on display, and plenty of secrets if you're willing to invest a bit of time looking around. It's just that the level design itself doesn't present much in the way of challenges. The real meat of the game is the combat system, which is a mixture of turn-based and timed QTEs that probably sounds pretty dull on paper but works surprisingly well in practice, allowing enough time to plan a strategy and consider your next move, but also demanding a good sense of timing and rhythm to get the most out of your attacks and block enemy counters. And believe me, you need to get good at this stuff because some of the later battles will be over in seconds if you can't block and parry to a decent standards. I'm speaking from experience here. Naturally, you can customize the shit out of your loadout, and while the combination of Pictos, Luminos, weapons, skills, chroma abilities, and tables of stats and buffs might seem a bit overwhelming at first, it all forms a pretty comprehensive system, and once it finally clicks for you, it offers up a huge range of possibilities for how you approach battles. Different enemies have different strengths and weaknesses, and figuring out their attack patterns, their weak spots, and the various quirks of how they fight is key to getting the most out of the combat system. All of this stuff, the gorgeous environments, the sprawling world with plenty of secrets to uncover, the challenging but rewarding combat system, the quirky characters, and the roller coaster plotline all add up to a gaming experience that's really quite unique. Expedition 33 kept me entertained, confused, intrigued, and compelled for almost 30 hours, and stayed with me long after the credits rolled, which is more than I can say for most games these days. And if somehow you haven't played it already and you're in the mood for something a bit different, then take it from me, it's worth your time. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.